Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the finest Dawn of War PvP workshop casts this side of East Yorkshire. And today we've got a 1 vs 1 in Unification on Fatamorga. For us other side, as the Farsight Enclave, we've got Commander. For our northern side, as the Shogun Renegade Guard, we've got Ghostjet. Ghostjet will be opening up with a couple of Militia Rangers, a Combat Engineer, Takan Field Doja, and a Tesla Reactor. Whereas Commander is going to go for a couple of Aircraft Engineers, a couple of Grey Vassal Squads, a Patrol Team, and a Enclave's Council. So I do quite like a good old PvP workshop. It does give me the chance to get into the nitty-gritty of how players play, allowing me to comment on the good things that happen and the things that do need to be improved on. Always quite useful for the players in the game as well as the people watching at home. We always want better games, we always want people to be improving, and it doesn't matter whether it's your first game, your 100th game, or your 1000th game. I do believe that there's always a chance for people to learn and improve from watching other people's stuff. Although usual caveats, boys and girls, you know, we do like these videos to have a nice comment section, well, as nice as a YouTube comment section can be. Like I mentioned earlier on, everyone's learning, so if you've got any like pointers or tips they want to throw down a face down with and see if you can, you know, maybe help other people, then feel free to do so. There's also a Discord in the comments, or should I say the description below, we can go to, and there's lots of people on there to help out with any questions that you have and stuff. So we've already seen quite a decent opening from both players, making sure that they're capping their strategic points. Although I would like to see the Field Doja and the Bastion have some sort of rally point set to either the strategic points that they're working towards, or maybe a general thing far-flung from their base, just to, you know, it's not a major thing, but it's nice to just have that maybe additional 2-3 seconds of these guys moving towards where you want to, just to maximize the unit potential for these guys. But yeah, everyone's capturing their nearest and dearest. Quite a brave choice, actually, for the Farsight Enclaves for your... I mean, would I say beginning faction? I don't quite know how many games Commander has played, but they are quite a complex faction to go for, considering that they don't really follow the usual strides that most factions do. Let's see Grey Vassal Squad moving off into the middle. A little bit of poking, prodding, seeing what's going on, but already having a frag grenade. Where are you throwing the... Do quite like that. It's like, we're just making sure that you're keeping on your toes, fellow Takan warriors. Yep, one model manages to survive. But yeah, do quite like the early upgrade for the grenade launchers, as going up against the Farsight Enclave, and they are quite reliant on their Grey Vassals in the early game until they get the commanders out and all that stuff. Also do like how Commander is making sure that his Orcas are staying online for as long as possible, as the Farsight Enclave do gain quite the economic boost from having those guys on the field at the moment. Commander Arakon, always a fantastic commander to start off with, as he is ideal for going up against a mass of infantry, which is what the Shogun Renegade Guard will be opening up with for the moment. Also got a nice knockback ability to throw all these guys away. Got to be careful with your commanders in the early game though, if they are going up against things unsupported, as they do take a bit of damage, and the commander health regen is quite slow in the early game, so any damage done to him will take a while to regen. We're already seeing him going into that red health. Takan Warrior is quite decent in close combat, in fact even better in close combat than they are at ranged. Do have a fair few Grey Vassal Squads over here which could have moved over to provide some firing support. Any ranged commander probably wants to be fighting behind a line of infantry just to keep him safe and sound. But Takan have not really anything to bash yet. I mean, they could go for the fire bases, but generally these guys, I mean, you can't upgrade them, so destroying them isn't a major... I mean, you can destroy them, and that will set the economy back quite something, but generally you want to be destroying these orbital landing flares, as it does set the squad cap for the Farsight Enclave back quite substantially, and they're also quite expensive as well in the grand scheme of things. Do like the placement of the transfer turret here, going off on this side and this side to make sure that any cheeky people coming over to cap stuff and try and destroy your things will be harassed and harangued by the transfer turret. They're not seeing all these strategic points having a listing post on top of them at the moment, which you definitely do need to make sure that you're doing that, otherwise you're doing yourself a massive disservice. What is it? It's about 6 blue money from a capped strategic point. If you build up a listing post on top of it, it is about 12. So you're doubling your economy right there and then. Patrol team trying to capture the critical location, but not quite getting it. Good choice of running away. No point in standing your ground against a mass of Takan warriors. Although they had the opportunity to stay in the base for a little bit. Could have maybe, like I said, take down a fire base or two. Then again, the Grey Vassals are also, I would say, probably just as competent in close combat as the Takan Warriors, so maybe a losing point there. We are seeing triple plasma generators here, so I am assuming that... well, actually, I say I'm assuming. I've watched this game already. I know what GhostJet's doing. He's going to go for an early tier 2, which is what you would normally see if you are going up against a... Well, if you're going up against a faction that's quite strong in the mid-game and the late game. Definitely want to make sure that you've got that early technological advantage so that their powerful late game isn't as aggressive. Seeing an increased waveband transition and some more plasma battery storage research as the Research Development Center is ongoing. So definitely seeing Commander getting as much of the tech on the go for himself as humanly possible. After all, in Tier 2, they are able to get their Commander health upgrades and the health regen, which is absolutely essential. Also, Sub-Commander Torchstar on the way, able to come online with a couple of Flamers, which, I mean, against lowly armoured and low health infantry, Flamers are always quite a decent thing to go for. AoE damage, there's a lot of damage on the models themselves, which bring them down quite quickly. Also, morale damage is quite a useful thing to take note of, as obviously when a squad's morale is broken, they do practically no damage. So if you're ever up against overwhelming firepower, a couple of morale-breaking stuff can basically break down a unit composition. But critical locations being captured on the left-hand side. Oh yeah, seeing them on the other side. Might want to hold back a little bit and just capture these critical locations. Granted, the chance of you winning a critical location countdown victory is very, very slim. But it does force your opponent to react to it. Oh, another lovely grenade right smack bang in the middle of the patrol team. Not all that useful in the early game, but they are quite swift and nimble. We do get quite a cracking amount of powerful weapons in the later stages. There's Commander Arachon, and like I say, look at that, still quite low health at the moment. Even though about 4 minutes has passed. Plenty of Guevasas moving forward with their pulse rifles. Sub-Commander Torchstar charges straight on in. And see what I mean? All that AoE damage breaks down a lot of their models very, very quickly. So even if you're playing as a faction that doesn't have a commander with double flamers, having a couple of those, instead of, for example, like a Slugger Boy squad, never a bad choice in my books. One squad wipe goes on, and could have potentially gone for another one, but these commanders only have one jump in the, or what do you call that? The jump refueling thingamajiggy. Some things like Raptors, they could jump twice, if I'm not mistaken. Or other factions with their jumping units. But these guys can only jump once. So if you do rely on jump, oh my goodness, that's a lot of Tesla reactors. So I do believe that GhostJet is hunkering down for a tier 3 kind of scenario. Not seeing any heroes from GhostJet here at the moment. You would normally see the Eternal Shogun, but one risk that you do have going up against the Farsight Enclave is that they have access to Commander Farsight, who is a remarkable duelist hero. And yeah, you don't really want to sacrifice any of your commanders to him, as the game goes on and they tech up, his close combat capabilities do skyrocket quite considerably. But yeah, I mean, if you're, in this situation, you've got lots of boys here, put some pressure on people, man. Like, I mean, you've got some units, you know full well that we're only seeing Takan warriors from the perspective of the Shogunate. And so, I mean, it just makes sense. You know, if you yourself are not being pressured, that usually signifies that the opponent isn't able to pressure you. So if you've got some squads like this, I mean, you know you've got Piranha Skimmer, you've got the morale breaking Torchstar, you've now got some crisis heavy battle suits, and some powerful pulse rifles on your Guevasas. May as well go in, and even if you're going to be pushed back, even if they're playing a bit defensive, you can always just run away, you know? Better to poke and prod and keep a safe distance and strike where the enemy's weakest than just stand around and not really do anything. Action economy, that's what it's called, I think. Making sure that every single one of your units are doing something useful. They charged on in, they've seen one Takan warrior squad, and then they've fallen back for whatever reason. Yeah, granted that there are tsunami squads over here, they have spotted them with the patrol team. I mean, now they could decide, right, okay, well, we know that these guys are over here. Let's move on over and start smashing these guys over. Or just completely ignore them and force an engagement over on this side. Takan warriors now reinforcing themselves. They've got the warrior champions with the plasma pistols, which, I mean, better than nothing when you're going up against a force that are primarily relying on the commander armor of their commanders. Tsunami tanks now moving over to join the ranks in the middle. A Southern Chimera, which doesn't do any damage, but provides a bit of supporting. fire with its smoke grenades, reduces the accuracy of the incoming squads. I do believe also knocks people around. It's always useful. And the commanders really need to move on forward, provide some supporting fire for the Grey Vassars. Well, it seems like they're just going to charge into close combat, even though they are armed with their plasma, or should I say their pulse rifles. There we go. Flying on in from the flanks, right in the middle. Getting those flamers to maximum use. They're struggling to actually, I mean, I assume it's the pathing going on here. That's making them have a bit of a difficult time going on in the centre. Which, I mean, if you've got overwhelming numbers, you can just attack on the flanks over on the other side. Tsunami tanks say, right, okay, well, you're just going to sit around in the middle and do nothing. We're just going to fly on in the centre and start striking down those all-important, critically essential orbital landing flares. This is what you want to do. If you're up against a fighting force that you know that you can't beat in a fair fight, well, then just attack something else. You don't need to go toe-to-toe, army to army with whatever you see. You can just ignore them. And now these guys are inside the base. That will force these guys to respond at some point. But in this situation, right, you've got to think to yourself, do I come back home and defend, or do I push on forward and see if I can convince these tsunami tanks to come back home? I'm going to send a broadside heavy battlesuit to come on over. It does a lot of damage to vehicles. Also will be sending a Orca transport, which I assume will go for some more units to be useful. Devilfish, not a troop carrier though, just a regular old Devilfish, arming itself with some smart missiles, which will take care of the tsunami tanks. And they'll just reposition over here. So, right, okay, well, almost kill this Enclave's council, which, you know, probably not the best thing to go. Or, like I said, the orbital landing flares are your prime target here. We will now start chunking away at it. Broadside heavy battlesuit, though, will be taking it on fairly decently. Takan warriors not really standing up all that well against these guys, but still not quite pushing forward as of when they wanted. They've now got the defensive force that can take care of these tsunami tanks. But being a little bit sheepish, being a little bit shy and coy, it's Commander Torchstar does what she does best. Also seeming to have some sort of electrical damage for anyone nearby her, which is alright. Love to see her just jump right into the middle of people and do her thing. Takan warriors falling back. We are seeing a tier 3 on Ghost Jet. There's so much stuff to bash inside the base that the Farsight Enclave could make use of, but they're just not. They've been scared into a defensive posture, and they're also doing this thing which, how would I describe this? Almost like a clutch. How would one describe? Can't describe. I had a word for this earlier on, but I can't quite remember what I was using to describe it. But essentially, it's a bit of a crutch for players. They think, right, okay, well, we're going to mass all our units in the centre, or mass all our units in one place in particular. That way we feel nice and safe. No one can get us. Which, you know, makes sense if you're anticipating an attack coming towards you. But look at this, like you've got 2 points of attack here. Move over here and start striking these people down, or you can move over on the left-hand side and start bashing the listing post with the relic on top of it. And you don't need to send all your boys there. You could just send, I mean, basically just, what have we got here? We've got a couple of crisis heavy battlesuits that do damage against vehicles and aircraft. Also pretty good damage against infantry and buildings as well. Just send 2 of these guys over here and bash things. It's not a major commitment, and because of their jumping capabilities, any damage that are incoming towards them, they can always just fly away. But they're just going to stand there, allowing the Shogunate to build up their fighting forces and moving down into the centre. They've now got their Ballista Maidens, which will kill the Grey Vassars quite nicely. And yet, only 1 squad being sent in means that they die. Which, I mean, if those guys were moving in and then these guys were getting into position, that would have been amazing, as obviously they would have distracted these guys' firepower a little bit, and then they would have been in prime position to damage this mass of infantry going on here. When Archon jumps in the centre, AoE damage from his guns, also massive blast backwards. So you can see the micro being attempted here by Commander. It's not quite there. Commander Torchstar as well on the left-hand side, nowhere near being able to commit to the engagement. Got a Thunder Mortar in the distance. Always good to have a bit of artillery in your fighting formations. especially if you know full well that your opponent isn't going to be trying any flanking. Just basically free DPS at that point. Now I've Commander Farsight, which, don't know how I feel about him in the later stages of the game, does fall off a bit. I mean, granted, yeah, he does a lot of damage as the game progresses. Generally, his motive is to go up against single entity targets. I suppose maybe bashing buildings and vehicles isn't a bad situation for him. But now the Shogun and Renegade Guard are just going to come down. A slow patrol for them. Always making sure that every unit for them has been supported by something else. Tanks go down. There's not much anti-vehicle stuff from the Shogunate. You also have Commander Shavastos over on this side, which I'm not sure what he's doing over here. Could be down here, providing some supporting fight. I mean, even going around the side and destroying these Thunder Mortars. That'll be some amazing stuff from him. And now he's just going to stand there, enjoy the view, enjoy a little bit of the scenery, so to speak. Got some Skyrim missile defense gunships up in the air, which will take care of the Shogunate vehicles. No questions asked. Also plenty of missiles to knock these guys around. Morale being broken completely across the forces of the Shogunate. And it's going to be difficult to push on in. The Farsight Enclaves do have quite a decent amount of range stuff ongoing for them, even though that they're sold more or less as a Tau faction that can also do melee combat. They, you know, they've still got quite a decent amount of ranged capacities for them. Although the Razor Sharks here holding the line on their own. They don't have to hold the line on their own. The Devilfishes can move a little bit forward, as well as Commander Arachon. I mean, okay, yeah, fair enough. They're a little bit low on health at the moment. The Broadside Battlesuit can also come over as well. But we're not seeing the... So what we're seeing here is that we're not seeing the Farsight Enclave making sure that all their units are being properly supported. Unlike the Renegade Guard on the northern side, whenever they move forward, they make sure that the tanks are able to support the infantry, infantry is able to support the tanks, and the artillery is within range of blasting things from a distance. Whereas the Farsight Enclave, we're kind of just seeing them with their positioning here. Things are a little bit too far forward or a little bit too far behind. We even saw it in the opening stages with Commander Arachon down here and some Guevasa on this side. You know, I mean, if those guys just came over and did some stuff, then Commander Arachon would have had a lot more health from the get-go. But they've got the rest, the Air Cast War Factory to go for some more Razor Shark Strike Fighters. And now these guys are on the move. Where are you moving to? Oh, you're just repositioning further into the corner. No ideal. I don't know, maybe they're just committing to defending this critical location on the right-hand side. And we're seeing here, again, what did they call it earlier on? Action economy, where rather than sending one squad over to capture this critical location, he sent the whole army over. Whereas if you just sent one squad over to decap it, and then spend the rest here just to keep on the pressure, you've still got that artillery. You don't need to go inside the base proper, as on Fata Morga there are plenty of things to go and bash on the outside. We're going back now. Oh, I've only seen one Guevasa squad coming over, and they're going to die straight away. Definitely want to hold these guys back to reinforce them. You've got plenty of money to spend as well. Well, I suppose one weakness of the Farsight Enclave is that their production capabilities is reliant on their Enclave's council. They can only send in so many Orcas at a time. Devilfish troop carriers attempting to fire on in. As the Shogunate Renegade Guard move on over. Pure infantry, more or less. But one thing that the pure infantry, well, not pure infantry, they've been supported by artillery tanks here. One good thing about having a massive infantry is that, well, I mean, that there's a lot of them, isn't there? Can't take them on as much as possible, unless, of course, you've got plenty of AoE. Which the AoE for the Farsight Enclave at the moment is not specifically designed for killing lots of infantry, but here comes a big blast from, I don't know who. Just coming in for the big blast. Is that just... that's just a piranha thing coming in. Is it a piranha? Something. I know that all the Tau vehicles are fish-orientated. Also have a couple of Well, never mind. We can talk about that. But yeah, so that was a game. And the main thing to take away from this game, I do believe, is from the perspective of the Farsight Enclave. For most of this game, they had the unit advantage. They had the ability to basically go in and do a lot of damage to the Shogunate Renegade Guard. But they didn't. They kind of hung around in the center in a defensive posture. Which, it's nice and safe being in a defensive posture. You know full well that wherever the enemy attacks from, you're able to repel them because you've got a mass of units that are able to go and deal with them. But being aggressive, that is basically what wins the game here. I don't think I've ever seen a person win a game by doing pure defense. I mean, actually, it'd be impossible to win a game from pure defense, as, you know, the whole point of the game is killing your opponent. And because of how heavy the Shogunate Renegade Guard were dedicating themselves to taking up as quickly as humanly possible with this mass of Tesla reactors, there was plenty of opportunity to be able to go in there and do some building bashing. Well, there were some really good moments when the Farsight Enclave were able to pull off some quite sick piece of micro, especially with, what was her name? Commander Torchstar, jumping in, basically torching alive a couple of Takan Warriors squads. In fact, actually getting a whole squad wipe down over on this side. Do like a couple of engagements here where they were able to jump some commanders in to do a lot of damage. Commander Arakon doing a lot of blasts and stuff. Just didn't really follow up on them. So, yep, so that is my feedback there. And thank you so much, GhostJet, for sending in these games. He did send in a couple of these games, so I will definitely be doing some more looks at his games in the future. And yeah, so if you want to support the channel, have a look at the old Patreon. £1 a month gets you once a game a week, and there is also a Discord, where Discord things happen. Links in the description as always. I've been Mr. Landshark, pleasure's always never short, and I will see you in a bit. Peace.